The wedding dress weighed on my shoulders like a lie embroidered in French lace. Each hand-sewn pearl seemed to mock me as I stood alone at the altar of St. Michael's Church, surrounded by 300 guests whose whispers filled the air like a swarm of furious bees. 20 minutes had already passed since I was supposed to become Mrs. Marina Alves de Castro. "Miss Sophia?" The priest's trembling voice broke the heavy silence. "Perhaps we should." 5 more minutes, my voice came out steady, but my hands trembled so badly that the bouquet of white lilies swayed like a flag of surrender. "Please." My mother, seated in the front row, had her face buried in her hands. My father stared rigidly at the main door, his jaw clenched as if he could force Raphael to materialize through sheer willpower. My sister Julia shot me looks of pity that cut deeper than any blade. And then, among the restless guests, I saw him. Lorenzo Benedetti, Raphael's best friend, stood in the middle of the central aisle, his impeccable Italian suit sharply contrasting with the devastation on his face. Our eyes met, and in that instant I knew. He knew where Raphael was, and from the way his dark eyes shone with something between rage and compassion, I also knew my fiancée was not coming. Lorenzo began walking toward me, each step echoing against the church's stone walls like a sentence being pronounced. The murmurs grew louder. When he finally reached the altar, he handed me a white envelope. "Sophia," his voice, usually so controlled, so authoritative, broke. "I'm so sorry. So sorry." My hands shook as I took the envelope. Raphael's handwriting stared back at me. "To Sophia, the love of my life." Love of my life. The words nauseated me even before I opened the letter. "Sophia, forgive me. I know I'm a coward for doing this way, but I can't. I can't marry you. Over the past few weeks, I realized I'm in love with someone else. Camila and I have been together for 3 months. She's waiting for me at the airport right now. We're going to Paris. You deserve someone better than me. Someone who loves you completely, without doubts. I'm not that man. About the baby, I'm not ready to be a father. Financially, I'll help, but I can't be present. I'm sorry, Raphael." The paper slipped from my fingers. The world spun. Camila, my cousin, the maid of honor who had held my veil half an hour earlier, smiling and telling me how beautiful I looked. "Sophia." Lorenzo's voice sounded distant. "Breathe. Please breathe." But I couldn't. My chest felt crushed, starved of air. The church lights began to flicker. My knees buckled, and then strong arms caught me before I hit the floor. "Someone call an ambulance!" Lorenzo shouted, his voice echoing through the church. "She's pregnant. Now." The last things I remember were the horrified faces of the guests, the scent of Lorenzo's expensive cologne as he held me, and the terrifying thought, "How am I going to raise this baby, Al?" I woke up in the hospital under harsh fluorescent light. My mother sat beside me, her face swollen from crying. "My baby," she whispered, stroking my hair. "Thank God you're okay." And the baby?" My hand flew to my barely visible belly, just 3 months along. "He's fine. The doctor said it was just stress-induced fainting. But you need rest." I closed my eyes, letting the tears finally fall. For 6 years, Raphael and I had built a life together. We bought an apartment, planned our future, and in a single day, in a single cowardly letter, everything turned to ashes. "Where's Dad?" I asked. My mother's silence told me everything. My father, Judge Roberto Mendez, had been publicly humiliated. His daughter abandoned at the altar, pregnant, by the fiancé who fled with his own niece. "He's processing everything," my mother said carefully. "You know how your father is." Yes, I knew. Proud, rigid, obsessed with appearances. This would destroy him. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Lorenzo entered, carrying a massive bouquet of white roses, my favorite flower, something Raphael never remembered. "May I come in?" he asked hesitantly. My mother glanced at him, then at me, and stood. "I'll get some coffee," she said. "I'll be right back." When we were alone, Lorenzo pulled a chair close to my bed. He looked exhausted, his eyes red as if he'd cried too. "How are you feeling?" he asked, and there was so much genuine pain in his voice that I nearly cried again. "How do you think I'm feeling?" I snapped bitterly. "I was abandoned at the altar, Lorenzo. In front of everyone. For my cousin." He clenched his fists. "I should have noticed. The signs were there. Him growing distant, the extra work meetings, the way he avoided wedding talk. I'm an idiot. You didn't know. But I should have," he exploded, standing and pacing to the window. "I've been his best friend for 15 years. How did I miss him cheating on you, with your cousin?" I'd never seen Lorenzo so unhinged. He was always the opposite of Raphael. Where Raphael was impulsive and careless, Lorenzo was calculated and composed. He took over his family's business empire at 25 after his father suffered a stroke. By 32, he was one of the richest businessmen in the country. But right now, he looked like a broken man. "Lorenzo," I began. "I need to tell you something," he interrupted, turning to me. Something intense flickered in his eyes. Something I should have said a long time ago. My heart raced. "What?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. He took a deep breath. "Marry me." The world stopped. "What?" I whispered. "Marry me, Sophia," he repeated, stepping closer and taking my hand. His skin was warm, steady. "Your baby needs a father. You need support. And I can give you that. Have you lost your mind?" I pulled my hand away. "You're the best friend of the man who just abandoned me at the altar." "Ex-best friend," he corrected coldly. "After what he did to you. To our godchild." He placed a hand over my belly with shocking tenderness. "This baby deserves a present father. Not just financial support, real presence." "But we don't love each other," I argued, even as a scared, desperate part of me considered the insane proposal. Something crossed Lorenzo's face, something I couldn't read. "Love," he said slowly, "can grow. Respect, trust, partnership, that's what makes a marriage solid. And we have that, don't we? We've been friends for years." He was right. I'd known Lorenzo since college, when Raphael introduced us. He'd always been kind, attentive. More than once, Raphael complained that his friend treated me better than he did. "People will think we're crazy," I whispered. "Let them," he replied. "The only thing that matters is that your baby has a family. And I promise you, Sophia, I'll love this child as my own. I'll be there for every ultrasound, every sleepless night, every first step." Tears streamed down my face. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do this for me?" Lorenzo cupped my face, wiping my tears with his thumbs. His dark eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my heart jump. "Because you deserve to be happy," he said softly. "And because I care about you more than you realize." Something unspoken hung between us like a secret waiting to surface. Before I could answer, my mother returned and froze at the door, seeing Lorenzo so close. "I'm sorry she began. "Mrs. Helena," Lorenzo turned to her, releasing my face but holding my hand. "I'd like to ask your permission, and Judge Roberto's, to marry Sophia." The coffee slipped from my mother's hands, splashing onto the floor. You're together?" she asked, stunned. "All this time?" "No," I said quickly. "He's offering help. So the baby has a father." I expected outrage, protest. Instead, my mother studied Lorenzo for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Will you take care of her?" she asked. "And the baby?" "With my life," Lorenzo answered without hesitation. "Then you have my blessing," she said, tears spilling. "Thank you for taking care of my girl when that coward abandoned her." And that's how, lying in a hospital bed, still wearing my bridal stockings under a hospital gown, I agreed to marry a man I didn't love, to give my baby the father his biological one refused to be. But as Lorenzo smiled at me, squeezing my hand gently, One question echoed in my mind. Was I making an even bigger mistake? 3 weeks later, I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting a simple cream-colored dress that clashed brutally with the extravagant wedding gown still hanging in my closet, a ghostly reminder of the most humiliating day of my life. "You look beautiful," my sister Julia said behind me, though worry colored her voice. "Sophia, are you sure about this? It's so fast." "I'm 3 months pregnant, Ju," I replied, resting a hand on my slightly rounding belly. "Not exactly a time to wait. But Lorenzo, you barely know him beyond being Raphael's friend." I turned to face her. "I've known him for 6 years. He's kind, responsible, and willing to be a father to my baby when the biological one ran off to Paris. What else do I need to know?" What I didn't say was that in just 3 weeks, Lorenzo had been more present than Raphael ever was in 6 years. He showed up daily with food, pregnancy books, and quiet companionship. Yesterday, he spent 5 hours helping me turn my office into a nursery. "Do you love him?" Julia asked gently. The word froze me. Love. "Love doesn't pay bills," I said finally. "Love doesn't guarantee someone stays when things get hard. Lorenzo offers me something better than love." I paused. "He offers loyalty." A knock interrupted us. My mother entered, wearing an elegant blue dress and holding a small bouquet of daisies. "It's time," she said, tears in her eyes, not sadness but gratitude. Since Lorenzo proposed, my parents treated him like a savior. The wedding would be civil. Close family only. No drama. Just signatures that would change my life forever. Lorenzo waited outside the registry office, immaculate in a charcoal gray suit. When he saw me, his face lit up in a way that stirred something unexpected in my chest. "You look stunning," he said, kissing my hand softly. "It's just a simple dress." "It's not the dress, Sophia. It's you." Something warm and deep flashed in his eyes, but before I could dwell on it, my father approached. "Lorenzo," he said, shaking his hand firmly, "take good care of my daughter." "Always, sir," Lorenzo promised. The office was small and sterile, nothing like the grand church where I was supposed to marry Raphael. Somehow, it felt more honest. When it was time for vows, Lorenzo turned to me, holding both my hands. "I promise to be faithful to you in all moments," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I promise to be the father your baby deserves and the partner you deserve. You will never feel abandoned again. I will always be by your side." Tears blurred my vision. "I promise to honor this union," I replied shakily. "To be a loyal partner and raise our child with all the love he deserves. I promise to give you the chance to prove this was the right decision." At the words "our child," something fierce crossed Lorenzo's eyes. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge said. "You may kiss the bride." He hesitated, searching my eyes. I nodded. The kiss was soft, brief, chaste, but my skin tingled. "Thank you for trusting me," he whispered. And for the first time in weeks, I felt hope. At the small reception, whispers followed us. Everyone knew. But Lorenzo squeezed my hand under the table. "Ignore them," he murmured. "Everything that matters is right here." Later, I asked him the truth. And when he confessed he'd been in love with me for 4 years. When Raphael called, when I chose Lorenzo, I finally understood something fundamental. Sometimes life doesn't give you the ending you planned. It gives you the one you needed. And our story was only just beginning. 2 weeks after the wedding, I officially moved into Lorenzo's apartment. Calling it an apartment was a brutal understatement. It was a 3-story penthouse overlooking the entire city, complete with a private gym, a personal movie theater, and a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a luxury magazine. "You know I could have stayed in my own apartment, right?" I commented as Lorenzo insisted on carrying all my boxes, refusing my help because I was pregnant. "And you know we're married now, right?" he replied with a smile. "Married people live together, Sophia. Besides, your apartment has too many stairs. What if you fall?" "I'm pregnant, not disabled." To me, you're carrying the most precious treasure in the world, he said so casually that it took me a few seconds to process the weight of his words. So yes, I'm going to treat you like you're made of glass. I sighed, but couldn't stop myself from smiling. Since the wedding, Lorenzo had become absurdly protective. He called me 3 times a day to check on me, always came home with something nutritious for the baby, and had already bought approximately 20 books on fatherhood. Your room is here, he said, opening a door on the 2nd floor and revealing a huge space with a king-size bed, a walk-in closet, and a private bathroom. I decorated it thinking of you, but if you want to change anything. I stepped inside, my jaw dropping. The walls were painted a soft blue, my favorite color. There was a bookshelf already filled with my favorite books, an oak desk near the window, and fresh flowers in a vase on the nightstand. Lorenzo, I whispered, emotional. It's perfect. My room is right next door, he pointed to the adjacent door. If you need anything during the night, anything at all, just call me. The proximity of our rooms made me strangely nervous. Since the wedding, Lorenzo had been the perfect gentleman, perhaps too much of one. He hadn't tried to kiss me again since the chaste kiss at City Hall, hadn't made any moves beyond holding my hand occasionally. Which was good. It was exactly what we'd agreed on. A paper marriage. So why was part of me disappointed? And the baby's room? I asked, changing the subject. Lorenzo's face lit up like a child on Christmas morning. Come see. He guided me to the 3rd floor. When he opened the door, tears instantly blurred my vision. The room was a dream. Pale yellow walls, since we didn't know the baby's sex yet. A handcrafted wooden crib, a perfect nursing chair by the window, and an entire library of children's books already organized alphabetically. You did all this in 2 weeks. My voice came out shaky. I had help, he admitted, looking almost shy. But I chose everything personally. I wanted it to be perfect for him. Or her. I walked over to the crib, running my fingers along the smooth wood. It's far from our rooms, I murmured. That's why I installed a state-of-the-art video intercom. Lorenzo pointed to the device on the wall. Any sound, any movement, we'll know. And when the baby gets older, we can move everything closer. I just thought that at first you might want privacy. Privacy for what? I thought. It wasn't like we'd have an active newlywed nightlife. As if reading my thoughts, Lorenzo cleared his throat. Sophia, we need to talk about expectations. My heart sped up. Expectations. Yes. About our marriage. About how we'll handle certain things. He looked so uncomfortable that I almost laughed. Almost. Lorenzo, you can just say what you're thinking. You won't scare me. He took a deep breath. I know this marriage started as an agreement. A way to give the baby a family. But now that we live together, we need to establish boundaries. Rules. Especially since I already confessed my feelings for you. That. Okay, I agreed, sitting down in the nursing chair. What rules do you have in mind? Well, first, I won't pressure you into anything physical. This is your space, your choice. If you want this to stay platonic, I'll respect that. He was looking at the wall, not at me, as if it were too hard to say while meeting my eyes. And you? I asked softly. What do you want, Lorenzo? Finally, he looked at me. And what I saw in his eyes made my stomach flip in a way that had nothing to do with morning sickness. I want you, Sophia. In every way. I want to kiss you in the morning, hold you at night, make love to you until you forget you ever thought about another man. His voice was rough, intense. But not like this. Not while you're still processing what Raphael did. Not while you're not sure this is what you want. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. So what? We wait. I whispered. We wait until you decide what you want from this marriage. Whether you want just a partner to raise the baby with, or if you want more. And if I never want more? Pain flickered across his face before he masked it with a forced smile. Then I'll learn to live with that. Because being close to you, even just as a friend, is still better than not being close to you at all. Something inside me broke at those words. The raw vulnerability, the honesty. Raphael had never been like this with me. Never opened his heart this way. I stood and walked over to Lorenzo. He watched me approach, muscles tense, as if bracing for rejection. Instead, I rose on my toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. "Thank you," I whispered. "For being honest. For not pressuring me. For being you." When I pulled back, I saw his eyes were closed, as if he were trying to memorize the moment. "Always, my dear wife," he murmured. "Always." The days turned into weeks, and we found a rhythm. Lorenzo left early for work, but always left breakfast ready, and a loving note on the counter. I spent my days organizing the apartment, working remotely on my master's degree, and preparing for the baby. Evenings were my favorite. Lorenzo came home, always asking about me and the baby first, and then we cooked together. He was a surprisingly good cook, something Raphael had never been. I learned while studying in Italy, he explained one night as we prepared risotto. My Italian grandmother insisted that a man who can't cook can't take care of himself or his family. Your grandmother was wise. She would have loved you, he said, sadness in his voice. She had passed away 2 years earlier. She always said Raphael didn't deserve you. She said that. Every time I visited her, she'd say, "That boy is like unsalted pasta, no flavor, no substance. But you, Lorenzo, you have fire. When will you find someone worthy of that fire?" He smiled sadly. "I think she knew, even before I did, that I was in love with you." I placed my hand over his on the counter. "She would be proud of the man you became." Lorenzo laced our fingers together, and we stayed like that for a moment, just feeling the connection between us grow. But of course, peace never lasts forever. It was on a Friday night, 4 weeks after the wedding, that everything changed. I was on the couch watching a movie when Lorenzo came home earlier than usual. He looked unsettled. "What happened?" I asked immediately, pausing the movie. "Raphael is back in the city," he said, removing his jacket. "My assistant told me. Apparently, he's trying to get his old job back at the architecture firm." My stomach tightened. I hadn't thought about Raphael since that phone call on the wedding day. It had been so easy to leave him in the past when he was on the other side of the world. "Does that change anything?" I asked. Lorenzo sat beside me, taking my hand. "Not for me. But for you? He's going to try to contact you, Sophia. You need to be prepared. I don't want to see him. And you don't have to. But knowing Raphael, he'll show up. Probably with flowers, apologies, and promises he'll never keep." There was bitterness in Lorenzo's voice. That 15-year friendship had been completely destroyed by Raphael's betrayal. "I won't fall for it again," I promised. "I know," Lorenzo touched my face gently. "But he'll appeal to the baby. He'll say he wants to be a father. That he made a mistake. Even if he says that, it doesn't matter. You are this baby's father, Lorenzo. Not him. You're the one who's here, who holds me when I cry, who reads parenting books at 3 in the morning because you're nervous about being a good dad." Lorenzo looked at me with such intensity that heat crept up my neck. "Say that again," he whispered. "What?" "That I'm the baby's father. You are the father of this baby," I repeated, realizing I was crying. "And you're going to be an incredible father." Lorenzo pulled me into his arms, and I let myself melt into his embrace. He smelled like coffee and that expensive cologne he wore, and he felt like safety, like home. "I'll protect both of you," he murmured into my hair. "From Raphael. From anyone. I swear on my life." But neither of us could have predicted how soon he'd have to make good on that promise. Because the next morning, when I woke up, there was a familiar car parked in front of the building. And when I went downstairs to pick up groceries the doorman had kept for me, who did I find waiting in the lobby? Raphael. Holding a massive bouquet of red roses, tears streaming down his face. "Sophia, please," he said the moment he saw me. "I need to talk to you. About our baby. About us." And behind him, entering through the main doors, was Lorenzo, who stopped dead when he saw Raphael. The rage on his face was something I'd never seen before. "Take your hands off my wife," Lorenzo growled, advancing. "Your wife?" Raphael laughed bitterly. "You stole her from me. While I was vulnerable, you took advantage." "Took advantage?" Lorenzo exploded. "You abandoned her at the altar, you bastard. Let her collapse from despair while she was carrying your child." Raphael stepped toward Lorenzo, and for a horrible moment I thought they were going to fight. "Enough!" I shouted, stepping between them. "Both of you stop. Now." They froze, looking at me. "Raphael, you need to leave," I said firmly. "There's nothing left for us to talk about." "But the baby." "It's our baby," Lorenzo cut in, placing his hand protectively over my belly. "Mine and Sophia's. You lost that right when you ran away. You can't stop me from seeing my biological child." "Yes, I can." A new voice entered the conversation. My father had appeared, likely having seen the commotion from his apartment window in the same building. "And I will. Raphael, if you approach my daughter again, I'll sue you for harassment. I'm a judge. I know how to make your life a legal hell." Raphael looked at us one by one, and something on his face cracked. "You don't understand," he whispered. "I made a mistake. I love Sophia. I always loved her." "No," I said softly but firmly. "You loved the idea of me. The loyal girlfriend who would always be there no matter how you treated her. But I'm not that woman anymore, Raphael. I grew up. And I found someone who truly values me." I looked at Lorenzo, who was watching me with so much love it made my heart ache. "I choose Lorenzo," I declared clearly. "I choose the man who chose me when you discarded me. I choose the man who wants to be the father of my baby. I choose my husband." And then, in front of Raphael, my father, and several curious neighbors, I rose on my toes and kissed Lorenzo. Not a chaste kiss like at City Hall. A real one. The one that communicated everything I was beginning to feel. Lorenzo stiffened in surprise for a second, then pulled me closer, deepening the kiss. When we finally separated, we were both breathless. "I'll leave," Raphael said, his voice broken. "But this isn't over, Sophia. That baby is my child. I'll fight for my rights." "Fight all you want," Lorenzo replied, holding me close. "You'll lose." Raphael left, the roses abandoned on the floor. My father squeezed Lorenzo's shoulder in approval before returning to his apartment, giving us privacy. "Are you okay?" Lorenzo asked, touching my face. "Yes," I answered. And it was true. Better than okay, actually. "That kiss," he began. "It was real," I interrupted. "Lorenzo, I don't know yet if I'm in love with you. But I know I'm starting to feel something. Something I never felt with Raphael. You don't have to explain. But I want to." I held his face. "I want to try. For real. Not a paper marriage, but a real one. I want to see where this can go." Lorenzo smiled that rare, genuine smile and kissed me again, right there in the lobby, sealing a promise we were both making. The promise that this was real. And that it was worth fighting for. But neither of us knew that the real battle was only just beginning. 3 months passed in a kind of bubble of domestic happiness. I was 6 months pregnant, my belly prominent and the baby constantly kicking. Lorenzo became obsessed with feeling every movement, his hand always finding my belly, his face lighting up every time the baby reacted to his voice. "He recognizes me," Lorenzo said one night, awed, when the baby kicked particularly hard at the sound of his voice. "Our son already knows who I am. Our son." The words warmed me from the inside. Because it was true. Lorenzo was more of a father to this baby than Raphael ever would be. Our married life had evolved naturally after that kiss in the lobby. We hadn't slept together. Lorenzo insisted on waiting until I was completely sure, but now we ate dinner holding hands, napped intertwined on the couch, and kissed with increasing frequency. I was falling in love with my husband. Slowly, cautiously, but irrevocably. We have the ultrasound appointment tomorrow, I reminded him, cuddling against his chest while we watch TV. We'll find out the sex. I've told you I don't care if it's a boy or a girl, right? Lorenzo kissed my forehead. I just want them to be healthy. And to have your smile. And what if they get your stubbornness? I teased. Then we're in trouble, he laughed. 2 stubborn Benedettis in one house. 3, I corrected. Because I'm a Benedetti now too. Lorenzo went quiet, and when I looked at him, there were tears in his eyes. What? I asked, worried. It's just, you called yourself Benedetti. Like it was natural. Like you belong. He held my face with both hands. Sophia, you make me so happy that sometimes I'm afraid this is a dream. If it's a dream, then we're dreaming together, I whispered and kissed him. The kiss deepened, growing more urgent. Lorenzo's hands moved along my back, careful but passionate. For the first time, I wanted more. Much more. Lorenzo, I breathed as he kissed my neck. I want you. Really? He froze, pulling back to look at me. Are you sure? Isn't it too soon? The pregnancy. The doctor said it's fine, I assured him, blushing but determined. And I want you. Not just because we're married or because you're good to me, but because I truly desire you. Something fiery lit in Lorenzo's eyes. Sophia Benedetti, are you trying to seduce me? Is it working? In response, he scooped me up, careful with my belly, and carried me to his bedroom. Not mine. His. A clear declaration of where we were going as a couple. That night changed everything. Lorenzo's gentleness, the way he worshipped me like I was something precious, the way he whispered that he loved me as we made love for the first time. It was completely different from anything I'd ever experienced with Raphael. Afterward, lying tangled together, Lorenzo tracing lazy patterns on my skin, I knew with certainty. I was in love with my husband. Lorenzo, I called softly. He sounded sleepy, content. I think I'm falling in love with you. He went completely still. Then propped himself on one elbow, looking at me intently. You think, or are you sure? I'm sure, I admitted, my heart racing. I'm falling in love with you, Lorenzo Benedetti. Maybe I already am completely in love. It's scary, because I've never felt like this before. Not even with Raphael. Sophia. His voice was full of emotion. You have no idea how long I've waited to hear those words. 4 years, according to you, I teased gently. More than that, he confessed. I think I fell in love with you the moment we met. When Raphael introduced us in college, and you were wearing that yellow dress, laughing at something that wasn't even that funny, and I thought, this woman lights up the entire room. Tears blurred my vision. Why did Raphael never make me feel like this? Because Raphael never truly saw you, Lorenzo wiped my tears. He saw what he wanted to see. A pretty girlfriend who would always be there when he needed her. But me? I see you. The brilliant woman who reads books in 3 languages, who cries at dog commercials, who's strong enough to rebuild her life after being destroyed. And I love every piece of you. Show me, I whispered. Show me how much you love me. And he did. All night long. The ultrasound appointment the next morning felt surreal. Lorenzo was more nervous than I was, holding my hand so tightly he almost cut off circulation. Everything okay? The doctor, Dr. Santos, asked with a knowing smile. First-time parents tend to be anxious. It's a girl, Lorenzo suddenly declared. I dreamed it. A girl with her mother's eyes. Dr. Santos laughed. Well, let's see if your dreams are prophetic. She applied the cold gel to my belly and began the scan. Everything looks healthy, perfect development, and if you want to know the sex. Yes. Lorenzo and I said in unison. Get ready to buy a lot of pink, she announced with a smile. It's a girl. Lorenzo made a strange sound, halfway between a sob and a laugh, and then he was kissing my hand, my face, even my belly. A girl, he kept repeating like a mantra. We're having a daughter. And judging by her size, she'll be born healthy and strong, Dr. Santos continued. Congratulations, Mommy and Daddy. Something about the way she said, Daddy, made my stomach tighten. Because technically, Lorenzo wasn't the biological father. And while that didn't matter to us, legally. Dr. Santos, I began. About the birth certificate. Lorenzo isn't the biological father, but we're married and he'll register her as his daughter. Is that a problem? The doctor paused, her expression turning serious. It depends. Does the biological father know about the pregnancy? Yes, I replied. But he abandoned the mother before the baby was born. Lorenzo and I married afterward. Then legally, as long as you're married when the baby is born, Lorenzo can be listed as the father. But, she hesitated. If the biological father decides to contest it, things could get complicated. Especially if he demands a paternity test. I felt Lorenzo tense beside me. That won't happen, he said firmly. Rafael doesn't want to be a father. Still, Dr. Santos advised, it may be wise to consult a lawyer. Just to protect your rights as a father, Mr. Benedetti. The appointment ended shortly after, but the joy had been clouded by worry. On the drive home, Lorenzo was far too quiet. Hey, I touched his arm as he drove. It's fine. Rafael won't show up. He made it clear he doesn't want to be involved. He said he'd fight for his rights, Lorenzo reminded me, jaw tight. In the lobby. When you kissed me. He threatened it. Empty threats. And if they aren't? Lorenzo stopped at a red light and turned to me, fear genuine in his eyes. What if he comes back when she's born and demands to be her father? What if legally he has rights? Then we fight, I promised. Lorenzo, you're her father in every way that matters. No judge will take her away from you. Your father is a judge, Lorenzo said suddenly. He'd know what to do, right? Probably. But Lorenzo, you're spiraling over something that may never happen. Or it may happen, he countered. And I need to be prepared. Because I would die before letting anyone separate you two from me. The intensity in his voice scared me, and warmed me, at the same time. No one is going to separate us, I assured him. We're a family now. Lorenzo relaxed a bit, nodding. But I noticed how white his knuckles were on the steering wheel for the rest of the drive home. The following week, Lorenzo hired the best family lawyer in the city. Dr. Martins was a man in his 50s with a reputation for never losing a custody case. The situation is complicated, but not impossible, he told us in his luxurious office. Mr. Benedetti, you are married to the mother before the child's birth. You are assuming financial and emotional responsibility, and the biological father expressly abandoned the mother and child. That works in your favor. But, Lorenzo asked, because there was always a but. But if the biological father decides to contest, he does have rights. Especially if he can prove he tried to be involved and was prevented. He wasn't prevented. I burst out. He chose to run off to Paris with my cousin. I believe you, Dr. Martins raised his hands calmly. But a clever lawyer can spin any narrative. That's why my advice is, document everything. Every message, every call, every time he shows up or doesn't. Build a record proving abandonment. And if he just disappears? Lorenzo asked. If he never shows up again? Then after 1 year without contact or support, you can petition for Lorenzo to legally adopt the child as the father, even against the biological father's wishes. But it's a long process. We left the office more worried than when we entered. A year, Lorenzo murmured as we walked to the car. A whole year not knowing if he'll show up and blow up our lives. Then we act like he doesn't exist, I said firmly. We live our lives, love our daughter, and deal with Rafael only if he shows up. Lorenzo pulled me into a tight hug right there on the sidewalk. How are you so strong? He murmured into my hair. Because I have you, I replied. We face this together, remember? Together, he agreed. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. Because when we got home, there was an envelope taped to our door. With the logo of a law firm. Lorenzo opened it with trembling hands. I watched his expression shift from confusion to absolute horror. What is it? I asked, my heart racing. It's from Raphael, Lorenzo said, his voice hollow. He's suing for custody. He's demanding a paternity test and full legal rights to the child. The floor seemed to collapse beneath my feet. He can't do this. But he is. Lorenzo crumpled the paper in his hand. That son of a bitch is doing exactly that. My hand flew to my belly, protective. I won't let him near her. You won't have to, Lorenzo promised, but there was desperation in his eyes. I'll fight this with everything I have, Sophia. I'll spend every cent if I have to. But as we held each other there in the hallway, the legal papers in our hands, I couldn't stop thinking. What if it wasn't enough? What if, after everything we built, Raphael still managed to destroy our family? And more terrifying still, what did he really want? Because Raphael never wanted to be a father. So why, suddenly, was he fighting so hard for a baby he had abandoned? Something wasn't right, and I was determined to find out what.